Thanks for joining us. I'm Jay Harrington. I'm an attorney. I no longer practice law, though. I started my career at Skadden Arps in Chicago, bounced around a bit, went to Foley and Lardner, and then started my own small law firm. At that time, I left. I'm now running a marketing agency serving the legal industry called Harrington Communications. I do coaching, consulting work with lawyers. Written a few books and have a podcast, but I'm excited to be here. My role today is to be a moderator for this discussion, and the star of the show, I'll throw it over to you, Rand, to introduce yourself.
Sure. Nisa, Jay, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I am also, like Nisa, based in Seattle. Started a company many years ago called Moz, which is in the SEO software space. And for many years, I taught folks SEO and had a popular video series about search engine optimization. I left that company a few years ago and started a new one called SparkToro, which is in audience research and intelligence. And SparkToro is a year old as of 5 days ago. So it is, we've been live for about a year, going okay so far. It's also in the software space. In addition to that, I wrote a book, which you can see on the bookshelf behind me. If I can get my, nope. Of course I can't get my mirroring right. I have relative expertise in a lot of areas of digital marketing. And I think that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Awesome. All right, well, let's dive right into that then, Rand, because I think that the term digital marketing is probably a lot of people have different interpretations of what that means, or uncertainty or lack of clarity around it. So maybe we can start by demystifying that a little bit. And so as we think about our audience of law students and lawyers, I guess, what do they need to know, or how should they be thinking about the term digital marketing? Like, what is it and why does it matter?
Yeah, so marketing as a whole, right? The idea is to build up awareness, trust, and likability of your brand, company, product, self, organization, mission, idea, whatever it is that you're trying to promote. And that could be because you want to raise money for a charity, or because in the case of a lot of lawyers, you are trying to attract business and also the right kinds of business, right? You want right types of customers contacting you, reaching out, becoming clients. And that's a great thing, right? But it is also a very challenging thing. In fact, for many attorneys that I've talked to, right, my understanding, I think Nisa and Jay, you would say this as well, is that very frequently this is one of the most frustrating, challenging, mysterious parts of being a lawyer, right? When you go to law school, there are not classes and structure around how to build up digital marketing or marketing at all efficiency, right? How to brand yourself, how to become known in a space, how to attract the right kinds of people and let them know that you exist and help them find you and understand who you are and what you offer so that they can contact you when they need you. That's frustrating, right? That's too bad. That's a core part of your professional life. In fact, for many lawyers I've talked to, it is 10 or 20% or more. For many, right, new firms, it's like 50% of what you have to do. If you want to go out on your own, that's often the thing holding you back, right? That and healthcare costs. Digital marketing, very important to attorneys.
Yeah, for sure. You're right, Rand. There's certainly when I came out of law school, this is way back in 2001. One of the things you heard and is from partners in the firm who are more senior, they would tell young associates, don't worry about things like marketing and business development. Just sort of keep your head down, do good work, and everything will take care of itself. And I think that's certainly changed. And I think when we think about marketing, what we are talking about is sort of synonymous with marketing is the means to the end of building your personal brand, right? And so I guess or a means to building your personal brand.
It could be. Personal branding might be one of your goals. Certainly, you could be trying to brand your law firm. You might be trying to build up or brand some asset of yours. But yeah,
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So if we just narrow in on personal branding, though, maybe we can talk about that a little bit, because if sometimes I think there's a notion that, well, I need to dial up my activity around marketing myself or whatever when I'm slow at work, or I'm trying to actually develop clients, or I'm looking for a new job, or whatever the case might be. But it really should be done on a more consistent basis than that, don't you think?
Yeah, it's so one of the biggest frustrations that I have around marketing in sort of the early stage companies, new businesses, professionals of all kinds, right, who are building their personal or professional brands or companies. Jay, they have this terrible mindset, right? Which is basically, I'm going to spend all this time building out my thing. I've been helping some independent game developers recently, right, with marketing and digital marketing, and they have this, oh well, I just spent 5 years building my game, right, in solo development. I contracted with artists, and look at this beautiful thing that I put together. We're going to launch tomorrow, and I need to know how to do marketing so that we can attract players.
Right.
Just, oh God, oh, you're killing me. I'm dying. How is tomorrow? You're launching tomorrow, and that's when you would like to do the marketing, right? The reality is, right, that that marketing is something that if you want to be successful, if you want to increase your odds of success, you have to bake it into the process right from the start. The name of your law firm and website is part of marketing, right? The length of the URL of the address that you register with, your domain name provider, that is marketing. Building up your email list before you launch, that is marketing. Growing your network of people who know you, like you, trust you, that is marketing. All of the connections that you make and the resonance of the messages that you send to people throughout that journey, that's part of marketing. And if you do those things before you need them, before you are desperate for that business, it's going to go so much better. At every step of that journey is going to be so much easier if you start from scratch. I don't know how much cooking you do, Jay, but you know how there's this French word, mise en place, right? Where you set out all your ingredients, and you have all the bowls that you're going to need, and you've got your cooking equipment and gear just all set out. And if you have cooked from a good mise en place at home or in a restaurant, right? It goes like clockwork. You can just look at the directions for the recipe. You can follow it. You can make those dishes perfectly, right? You know exactly when to turn up the heat and down. Oh, I need the green onion. All right, in it goes. It's right there. It's already chopped up. Or you can, I guess 3 minutes ago, I really should have beat these eggs. So I'm going to beat them now. Oh no, the chicken's overcooked. Oh, the soyakadon is not going to come together.
Yep.
Same thing. Same thing is true here.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Your marketing mise en place. I'm gonna write a blog post about this now. Marketing.
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote a book, my latest one. It's called The Productivity Pivot, and I have a chapter in which I discuss that concept and quote Anthony Bourdain, and I think it's totally apt. It's about preparation. It's about
I stole it from you, but unwittingly.
No. I stole it from someone else. Don't worry about it. Yeah, that's what we do, right? There are no new ideas. But I love that analogy or a metaphor, and it's totally apt. Where you need to be prepared. You need to be ready. You see it we're speaking about books. Authors do that all the time, right? They spend 2 years writing a book. They don't think about how to market or launch it. And definitely the same thing applies. I mean, I don't know how many times when, I'll get a call from, a lawyer who is approaching, the point at which they're going to be considered for partner in their firm. And they all of a sudden realize, I need to have a book of business, or at least need to show a real aptitude for building one. And it's the same scenario. And those that take those steps early on in their career to, to start to market themselves, to build their network, all the things you mentioned, Rand, it just goes so much more smoothly, because you do need that time to generate that awareness and trust that you mentioned, don't you?
What I do think, is realistic, right? And you mentioned that out of law school, you sort of had this advice to put your head down and do good work. And there is an aspect of that dovetails nicely, that does fit nicely, which is I have found in my career that it paid extreme dividends to first, before I built my network, to build up my expertise, right? So that essentially I could be a valuable resource to the people in my network. And that as I networked with them, it wasn't just, oh, I like Rand and he's sort of a nice guy and maybe he's charismatic or whatever it is, right? Or I don't know, I think his ridiculous cardigans are hilarious and so I want to spend more time with him. But rather it was because Rand has expertise in this specific field and subject, and because he's proven that expertise through his, whatever it is, his writing and or his presentations, or, his work in the field that we can point to, right? Projects that he's done for clients. Because that exists, he can build a reputation around it. And I know him for that thing. And so therefore, when I have a need around that thing, I can go to Rand. And I think this works extremely well in the world of the law, where there's niches of all kinds and sub niches of each of those. And so if you need someone who's an expert in, for example, I started a company a couple of years ago. I needed someone who was an expert in alternative funding and financing documents, who would help me both structure how we were going to fundraise, because we didn't want to do venture capital. We wanted our own sort of unique system. And so because of that, we went to someone who I knew in the Seattle area, who was an expert in this space and who had built up a brand among entrepreneurs like myself around that topic, right? And this person, Joanne, he had done work in that field. So he had found his passion, built up his expertise, and then built his network from that. So putting your head down and doing the work, finding what you love and like in the law, and then using that as how you amplify and brand yourself, that's a great way to go. There's nothing wrong with that, right? That is in fact a wonderful opportunity for marketing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yes, and that raises a question for me. I'm curious as to your take on it, because I do find that there are some people, lawyers in particular, that's who I'm working with, who, the word expertise scares them a little bit, in the sense that they feel like they need to have a certain very high level of expertise before they really share much of anything, right? It can almost scare people off. I mean, in fact, just this morning, I was working with a coaching client who is, by all accounts, a top expert in her field, in her narrow area of domain expertise, and even she has some trepidation around, well, what do I have to say that's actually new, novel, or interesting? And so you could see that being a real impediment for someone who might be early on in their career. I don't know, maybe just we can talk about this for a minute. I often think, well, all you need to be really is you're an expert. Everyone's an expert in something, and it just depends at what stage of expertise or what level of expertise you have. Like, for example, a first-year lawyer is an expert in how to get through law school and take the bar exam. That everyone has something interesting to say or share at every point in their career. I don't know if you agree with that or have a different take on it.
So I would say it's not necessarily expertise. I think one of the only advantages that I had when I was young and getting into search engine optimization was the field was not very well established yet, right? It was a relatively new one. And so I lucked out by picking something that not a lot of people were very well known for. And second, I was curious and unsophisticated, right? I did not know what I didn't know yet. And so my exploration of the field was actually sort of what built up the brand around Moz. Anyone can go back and read my early blog posts from like 2003, 2004, even 2005. Those first few years, like you're reading and you're going, really, this guy, this company became a $50 million a year software business, and people invite him to keynote? Are you sure? No, this makes no sense. But in those early days, right, the value of what I was creating and sharing was the curiosity, the questions, the interest and passion, the sort of youthful ignorance, right? And that was not ineffective, and still is not. I see it all the time in spaces, ranging from artificial intelligence to cryptocurrency to indie gaming to pottery. Every world has this where that curiosity and interest and passion can build up the brand as well. So Yes, I think you can start doing that very early on in your career, and you can even change your mind a bunch of times, right? You can shift and determine that, you know what, I thought I really liked this. I don't. I want to go do these things. I'm going to express curiosity in those ways. That I think the challenge is that, particularly in the legal field, there is a this is my sense from talking to a lot of attorneys who've needed help with SEO and then later broad digital marketing over the years. There's a sense that if you are not an expert, you shouldn't talk about something, right? You should put your head down and be quiet. And I think that is both incorrect from a marketing perspective and also societally, culturally. I think that's a bad move. I think we make much more progress when we ask questions openly and when we dare to give people who don't yet have institutional power and opportunity the ability to be curious and to explore. So yeah, I would urge a cultural shift on that front. And I think that that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to ask an individual to do when you're sort of in a structure that isn't friendly to it, but it can pay dividends.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, let's talk a little bit. I
was going to mention one more thing, which is, Jay, you said that imposter syndrome, or someone commented that imposter syndrome is a real thing in the law. And I just have two words that I think to argue against anyone feeling like an imposter in the legal field. Rudy Giuliani.
There you go. Yeah, who was in the news today, in fact, for getting.
Well, I saw the Borat movie. Dude, there is no one on this call. There is no one in the legal field who can do worse than that. So, look at the bar. You have cleared the. I don't know what the opposite of the bar is, but the floor.
Yeah, the floor, exactly.
The floor.
No, that's funny. So we're talking about marketing as engaging in discussions with and creating content for an audience, and so that obviously means that you need to have a means to do that, right? A way to reach an audience, a way to engage in those discussions. So what are some thoughts you have, Rand, on like online channels, platforms, places to kind of engage and immerse yourself within those conversations?
Yeah, this is a great question that I get quite a bit, and my answer is very different from I think what the standard is, which is there's a lot of advice out there around you need to be everywhere, or these 3 or 4 channels are very popular, so you have to have a presence on them. And my answer is different. My answer is if you don't personally resonate with a channel or tactic, you are not going to be great at it. If you think, boy, I really, really despise, I don't know, LinkedIn. So just set up a profile and ignore it, right? Maybe answer replies from when people send you a message there, and that's it. You don't have to use LinkedIn as a marketing tool. You absolutely don't. Google Maps, right? Every attorney should probably have a Google Maps presence. Beyond that, do you need to concentrate and focus on it a whole bunch? No, not necessarily. If search engine optimization is not your thing and ranking for particular keywords and worrying about your Google listing is not your jam, great. Set it up once, forget it. Or hire an agency to set it up once for you or a consultant. No problem. That is totally fine. And if you love Twitter or Instagram or blogging or running an email newsletter or setting up a podcast or a video series on YouTube, or the list is endless, great, do those things. Because if you have passion and interest around them, as long as some subset of your potential customers are in those places, you're going to be fine. Now, if you tell me, well, I want to set up a private Discord and I want to do all my marketing through that. Yeah, are your customers there? I don't know, maybe not. I might bias to something that is similar, maybe participating on Reddit. That's a similar experience. And there are a tremendous number of people with deep legal needs and interest in the right subreddits. You can absolutely participate in those communities and earn lots of business. I don't know how many times I've clicked on an interesting thread and seen hi, I'm an attorney in Pittsburgh, and here's what's actually going on here, and let me explain this problem to you. And then a bunch of the replies will be like, oh, wow, what's your contact info, right? Or people click their profile and check out their website. What do you know? Very helpful. So yeah, my advice on channels and tactics is to choose places that are a combination of these three. One, you believe you can provide unique value in them beyond what other people are doing. Two, you have personal passion and interest. And three, your customers, some subset of your potential customers actually engage and interact there. You meet those three criteria, those are channels and tactics that you can invest in, and you can choose to really prioritize just a couple and maybe have a presence in a few of the more notable spots, right? You should probably have a LinkedIn and a Twitter and a Facebook page and an Instagram page and a Google Maps presence. And beyond that, if you want to claim profiles elsewhere, go for it. But beyond that, you can choose your channels as you will.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. And I agree. I think that one of the problems that attorneys have, like all of us, but I think attorneys in particular, is dealing with the scarcity of time, right? I mean, there's such a pressure to bill hours. Really, a lot have a hard time finding and making time for marketing and business development. So getting really good, developing a skill set on one platform, I think is important. And Rand, I guess just generally speaking, let's try to create an avatar of someone who's listening right now and maybe is on LinkedIn, for example, and is that person who's created a profile, maybe goes on once in a while, scrolls their feed, but doesn't know how to take it to the next step. Like when we talk about engaging, discussing, creating content, what are we really talking about? Like what are some maybe initial steps someone might take to actually get more visible on a platform like LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think one of the best things that you can possibly do before you dive in yourself is study people for whom it is already working, right? So you go find and identify, oh, wow, gosh, this attorney is very in my field or in a related field is quite popular on LinkedIn. And here are several other attorneys like them. What are they doing, right? Let me follow them and sort of subscribe to their feed or follow them or whatever it is, connect with them and sort of study what they're doing. Watch go scroll through the last 6 months of activity, go see what's worked well for them, go see where they're getting, lots of comments and engagement and likes and shares and whatever the platform metrics might be, right? And you can do that across any platform. If it's Reddit, right, you could go look on, I think it's Our Legal Advice, where there's just thousands of questions posted every week, and many of them getting tremendous amounts of activity. You could go to Quora and you could look at, what are questions that people are asking? Quora is a great platform because a lot of the questions that are asked there rank very well in Google as well. And so what tends to happen is, people have the question, they'll search for it in Google, they'll find their way to Quora, and then they'll see an answer from someone they perceive to be an expert who has credentials, and they'll go check out their profile. So same thing, right? You can study and watch and learn, and that is where I would begin your journey of making an investment. I like experimenting, I like diving right in, but I think if you watch and see what's working for other people, you can then decide, what things do I want to, as a great artist does, copy and steal, and which things do I want to innovate on and experiment with and try my own version of? That research process is often both very interesting and intellectually stimulating, and of course, attorneys are very familiar with studying other people's work and what has happened previously in a field, because that's sort of a requirement, and then learning from that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think one point to add on to that, I know that for many of the lawyers who are building a big following and I know generating business via the work they're doing on platforms like LinkedIn, they're really paying attention to things like the questions that their clients are asking them, over and over. What questions are they getting that, and then they're building content around that, or they might bump up against an interesting issue in the research they're doing on behalf of a client. So really paying attention to their day-to-day work experience and incorporating what they're learning and what interests them, and what questions their clients are asking into their content and social media activity, I think is really effective. It might be something for people to think about.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I would say that when it comes to that explanation phase, this is one of the areas where I find many folks, attorneys are not alone at all, but in taking a concept that is complex and nuanced and making it simple and accessible and understandable to other people. And that is one of the skills that goes across all platforms and all channels. And if you can get good at that, then what we call content marketing, right? Essentially creating something for other people to consume becomes a very powerful way of driving your business. And if that's not something you feel like you're great at with the written word, it could be that video is good for you, right? Especially if you feel like you're relatively competent and charismatic and not nervous and, have very few disfluencies on camera, those kinds of things. But again, a lot of this stuff is about practice, right? So you can choose to invest where and how you will. The only other thing I want to say about this all, Jay, is I am certain that there are people listening to you and I right now, and they're like, I don't want to do any of this. This all sounds terrible. This is not why I got into the law. I get that it's good advice potentially, but this is not my forte. There's this wonderful thing called marketing agencies and consultants. And I would just urge you. So despite being quite good at these things myself, we use marketing agencies and consultants at SparkToro. Right? We're a small 2-person team. I love outsourcing anything and everything we can. I am more than happy to pay high rates for experts to do great work. What else are lawyers except experts who do great work to whom you pay high rates, right? That's like, I could probably learn with enough time and enough practice. Maybe I could learn enough to sort of write my own fundraising docs. Nah, I'm going to have a lawyer do it, right? You could probably become an absolute boss at YouTube marketing or Twitter marketing or setting up your Google Maps page, but you could also pay a few $1,000s to someone who's a deep expert and has done it a bunch of times and have them manage that portion of it. And then you can decide which portions you want to invest in, right? If that's hey, I love the research and turning that into content ideas, but you know what, once it comes time to create and promote that's in the hands of the agency. This works pretty well. I know a lot of attorneys, and I know a ton of marketers whose work is doing this for and on behalf of attorneys. So I would just urge you to consider that is also a possibility if all these things that we're talking about sound terrible to you. What's good though, what's really important, Jay, about our conversation is before you make these types of investments, it really pays to have sort of a level of knowledge. Like, oh yeah, I heard Jay and Rand talk about these kinds of things. And now I'm talking to a marketing agency and they're pitching me on Clubhouse. And so it doesn't sound right to me. And, maybe this is a little off, and gosh, maybe I should email Jay and see, hey, Jay, we got this pitch. Does this sound kosher to you? And you can be like, oh no, that is neither kosher for Passover or any other time of the year. And then, yes. So right. Building up some knowledge around this. Very sure. Good.
Yeah, no, that's smart. I mean, you should at least be, if you, to the extent you ever are in a position where, you're starting your own firm and looking to outsource something, you should be very familiar with at least some of the terminology. I mean, there's so much jargon and so many acronyms in the marketing world. What's it, SEO, SEM, PPC, like it can get very confusing. I mean, the legal industry has its own jargon as well. Everyone does. So everyone should kind of have at least, like you said, a baseline familiarity with these things in order to make informed decisions.
Absolutely.
Let's talk for a minute about, I put together just a quick list of maybe, I think it's 5 objections, that I hear most often to, by lawyers when kind of encouraged to do some of this type of work that we're talking about. So maybe we can run through some or all of them and see if you have any response to that. So number 1 would be, I just simply don't have the time, which I think comes from a thought process that this needs to be like, maybe hours of time devoted to it. So are we talking about significant amounts of time, or what would you say to that person?
Yeah, so a few things are true. Mm-hmm. If you absolutely have no time for it, that probably means you have a very healthy pipeline, right? That lots of new businesses coming into you, it's constantly filling your plate. So therefore, hey, if you're constantly working on billable hours, you must already have a marketing engine that's working for you. Here's the only thing I might say about that. If that marketing engine belongs to someone else and you are disconnected from it, and if you were to, I don't know, leave this firm that you work at, or strike out on your own one day, or those kinds of things, and the marketing engine were just completely dried up, was gone, was disconnected from you, or the marketing engine at your firm is connected to a couple of people and you're the owner of the firm, or the senior partner or whatever, and you think to yourself, gosh, if those people left, we would have no marketing pipeline. We need to start investing in some then the onus is on you to make some sacrifices so that you have opportunity in the future, right?
Yeah.
Hey, this is all of life, I think, is about this. Should I make sacrifices right now that maybe cost me in the short run, but will be healthy for me in the long run? Like I really do want to buy and eat that entire bag of Cheetos right now. It is a sacrifice for me not to pick it up. It's on sale for $2.99. Look at the hugeness of the bag. Imagine the enjoyment I will have while I watch the Great Pottery Throwdown tonight and eat my Cheetos. But I am investing in the health of my body for the long term, so I will not buy the Cheetos. Right? It's the not buying the Cheetos and saying, I'm going to sacrifice some of the time that I would have spent. I'm going to say no to a client project. I'm going to push off onto another associate, whatever it is. And then your body will be healthier. Your marketing longer term will be healthier. Same philosophy.
Yeah. All right. So big takeaway number 1, don't buy the Cheetos. All right. So
I say this only because a couple of weeks ago, for the first time in like 10 years, I bought an entire bag of Cheetos.
Yep.
And they are really, really crunchy, but they're tasty, but they're not food. Mm-hmm. Like if you eat normal food every day and then you suddenly buy like a processed, you're like, gosh, there's something, it's not, my body doesn't handle it well. The next day didn't go well for me,
Yeah, why can't I get these stains off my fingers?
Oh, okay. I shouldn't give you this advice. This is terrible. I am enabling your Cheeto habits. Chopsticks. Chopsticks and Cheetos are a game changer, my friends.
All right.
You know what? Here's the key. What you have to do is, when you go through the checkout aisle at the supermarket, get the little tiny bag. That's sort of like having your cake and eating it too, because it's much smaller. Even if you eat the whole thing, it's not as terrible for you.
Yeah, you'd probably just pour that right in your mouth without even touching your hands, right? So, all right. Well, I think we better get back on track. I
recommend none of these things. The American Heart Association is censuring this podcast, this video cast.
Yeah. All right. Well, Nisa, next episode is Cheetos hacks. We're gonna do a whole segment on it. But no, I think you raised a lot of good points there, and I do think one of them that came to mind was if you want to be more autonomous, and I think that's one of the things that lawyers struggle with. We all do. I mean, I think autonomy. There's been studies; it's the highest predictor of career satisfaction. Like you feel control over your own circumstances. If you want that, you need to invest in it. To your point, Rand. There's a favorite anecdote of mine by a lawyer who everyone knows as Warren Buffett's business partner in Berkshire Hathaway, Charlie Munger. When he was a young lawyer back in, I think it was the early 1950s, he found himself in a position where he was, as he saw it, spending all of his time on other people's priorities, meaning billing hours for his clients. And that's a common spot that every lawyer finds himself in. So the way he approached it was, if he was ever going to get ahead, he needed to start seeing himself as his own most important client and selling himself 1 hour of his time every day. So he started taking the first hour of it every day and working. In his case, he was working on the real estate deals that ultimately led him into the investing world. But I think that same sentiment of like starting to sell yourself, even if it's 15 minutes of your time to do marketing or business development, is key to overcome the scarcity of time mindset.
I mean, I love this idea that you are your own most important client. I feel like this applies far more broadly than the law.
Totally.
Right? This is about self-care. It's about valuing your own time. It's about investing in your own future.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be about purely financial success either, which I know, a lot of us talk about, but this, that freedom, I will tell you, Jay, from my personal experience, my previous company, Moz, I was making a very nice salary. I was making, I don't know, $250,000 a year. That's a nice salary, right? It's probably a low attorney salary, but a very good salary for, an untrained college dropout like myself. And when I left and started SparkToro, I'm currently making half of that. And I am way happier.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I love it. I wouldn't trade. You would have to offer me, I don't even know if there's a number, this new gig, being able to, I can log into my metrics and sort of see how everything's doing with the business and choose the investments that I want to make. That autonomy, that ability to, grow my own skills and grow this company with my partner. I love it. You can't trade it, right? So I think this is a very important sort of big question to be asking yourself on that time crunch problem about where and how you want to make investments for your life and your future, not just, should I do billable hours or should I invest in my marketing?
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go to another one, which is I don't really want to be on social media, for example, or even just out there creating content because it feels self-promotional, maybe a little sleazy. Like it just doesn't seem like it's appropriate for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, so this is a very fair pushback, and I myself have struggled around this. I have frequently been accused by coworkers in particular of being so anti-self-promotion that at my previous company, I would often, whenever there was like a problem in the SEO space, I would bring up all of our software competitors before I brought up Moz. Like, you can do this with these other tools. Right. And also the company that I work for, Moz, does it. And so I think that if your discomfort is primarily around self-promotion, one of the best ways that you can overcome that is to put the person you are helping or the people you're helping first, right? And instead to shift your mindset away from, I am creating this work in order to promote myself, to, I am creating this work because I don't see a great version of it out there. When I search Google, when I go to conferences and events, when I see the sort of resources that are popular in this field, they don't solve this particular painful problem for this person. I am going to help that person. I'm going to do it for free. I'm going to do it out of the goodness of my own heart. And also, I know that probably because I created it and put it on our website and made it available, it will also drive business to us. But that is a secondary impact of helping these people. If that's what's holding you back, that philosophy and that mindset shift can be very helpful. And in fact, ironically enough, it can often be much more successful in attracting the kinds of people that you want as clients than the self-promotional version. The second thing I would say is, if just being out there at all is the discomfort, right? Sort of having your, whatever, I don't feel comfortable being on stage. I don't feel comfortable I don't know, being on a podcast. I don't feel comfortable sharing what I'm doing on social media and those kinds of things. You can build up your marketing engine reputationally, right? So essentially what other people say about you this is a really good use of an employee, right, who's a marketer, or an agency or a consultant to do that type of work for you, to put together your website. Hey, can we talk to a dozen of your past clients and get testimonials from them? Yes, go ahead. You can talk to them, right? And then build it up reputationally and networking wise, rather than through putting yourself out there. This marketing channel and tactic works for a lot of attorneys. So I'm not going to discount it.
Yeah, that's good advice. All right, so one more, well, at least we'll see how we go on this one, but yeah, someone might say, look, I went to law school, one, because I'm not good at math, nor do I like it, and two, because I'm not a creative person. So law school seemed like the right fit for me. So I think there's this understanding that in order to be an effective marketer, you need to be really the quote creative type. So I don't know, can you dispel that myth if you believe that it is a myth?
So my primary belief around marketing, what separates a great marketer from mediocre one, is empathy. It does not have to be raw creativity. And I think, look, human beings are very creative. The law is an incredibly creative profession, right? The whole concept of how will I discover and uncover whatever it is, the structure for these documents, the research that I'm going to need, the ideas that I'm going to convey. These are all creative practices. So I don't like the idea of selling ourselves short. I sold myself short on creativity for a long time. And my wife, Geraldine, actually has helped me realize I do in fact have enough creativity to even do crazy things like play Dungeons and Dragons. But the other thing I would say along those lines is modern marketing is much more, especially modern digital marketing, has many aspects of it that are very structured in an almost engineering-like way, right? In terms of technical proficiency and setting things up in a way that you sort of take formulas around how keywords and content work together, and how a website needs to be structured, and how to set up analytics, and how to learn from those analytics, and how to compete in Google's rankings. And if that's the part of the law that appeals to you, right? Sort of the underpinnings and the underlyings, and like, let me figure out how things work and fit together. Fantastic. There's a marketing channel for you. It's called SEO. It is very powerful. It can work extremely well. You can absolutely work with a professional, or you can do it yourself. There's plenty of opportunity there. And if creativity is your strength, there's tons of opportunity on that side as well. What you do need at the core, though, is that empathy, right? Being able to, I can put myself in the shoes of my client who is experiencing this painful problem, or they're nervous about some future problem, and they're trying to avoid the consequences of doing it wrong, of making a mistake. And that's where, my job is to protect them from that and to ensure that they do things right. And here is how I'm going to express that empathy through whatever kind of marketing I'm doing. That could be in person, it could be digital, could be through advertising even.
Yeah. All right. So one more. This would be the person who is hesitant to put themselves out there because they're afraid of giving away too much. In this context, I hear it in the sense that, I don't want my competitors to see what I'm doing. Why would I, be sharing a bunch of thought leadership content? Aren't my clients going to just then take those ideas and do it themselves? Maybe you could address those things. And I see you're chuckling because I think you have the same sentiment that I do around these issues.
So the irony there is, I don't know if it's irony or serendipity, but my career, I owe my career to lots of people who believe that. Mm-hmm. Right? So in the early days of search engine optimization and digital marketing, this is 2001, 2002, many professional marketers believed the same thing, that if they shared their knowledge of how Google's ranking algorithms worked and what the inputs were, and if they wrote about it publicly, they would lose all their clients because their clients would just do the work themselves, and their competitors would learn, and then they would come in too. And my philosophy when I started Moz, In fact, even the name Moz comes from the Mozilla Foundation and DMoz and Chef Moz. It's like this idea of open source, right? So the entire blog that I started was about open sourcing SEO. And it turns out that what we now call content marketing, but which didn't even have a name when I started it, is incredibly successful when you openly share what you learn, what you know, what you do in ways that resonate with people. You are much more likely to earn vastly more quantities of business because people view you as an expert, someone who's knowledgeable in the field, someone who's done their work, someone who knows what they're talking about. This has been proven over and over again. And of course, Moz owes its success. I owe my success to the fact that we were willing to take a chance on that. And nowadays, right, it's sort of just a given in the marketing world, like across the digital marketing industry. And I don't, that's not me doing that, right? That's many, many people making that same investment and realization over the years. But this is true in every field, right? There are, there are now economists, which you want to talk about a staid profession. There are economists who basically have discovered or uncovered this idea that, oh, if we share everything that we know and learn and do in our field, it improves the entire field, right? This is a discussion that's happening in medicine very rapidly, where there's a lot of people who historically have believed that, that there should be lots of protections and layers of secrecy around it. And now, with global health coming to the forefront, as we're in this pandemic, there's a lot of, I think, changing beliefs. And this is true in the law as well. Besides which, I have bad news for you. If you are not the one who's doing it, someone else will, right? Someone else already is. You might say, oh, but I'm the only one who, you are not the only one. There's no chance. Not anymore. So you can choose whether to make that investment or not, absolutely. But you don't get to decide whether the information is available or not anymore, right? At least not alone.
Yeah. And for anyone that wants to see someone who's doing this really well, many of you are probably already following her or familiar with her, which would be Laura Frederick, who is doing, for the last 9 months, posting every day her best insights around commercial contracting, and she, she's essentially giving away everything she knows via her LinkedIn posts every day, and she's growing a tremendous practice for herself as a result of that. So this definitely does work. People aren't, they're not looking to do it themselves. They're looking to have confidence in the decision around the person they hire to do the work for them. And your content and you sharing your expertise helps to create that confidence. Rand, I guess what would be, this is another thing that I think some people struggle with, which is what should someone's expectations be around this, right? In terms of, how quickly will they potentially gain traction, whatever that means based on their goals. What are some signals that what you're doing in digital marketing is working, is maybe a better way to put it?
Yeah, a challenging question because this is different for every different tactic and channel. Mm-hmm. So some tactics and channels, for example, Facebook advertising. Yep. Is a channel where if it's not showing you a return on investment very rapidly, you should stop spending. You can iterate and you can sort of play with the fiddles and dials, but I would tend to tell you to pull back on your advertising almost entirely if it's not ROI positive, within 30 to 60 days. And that is also true with Google advertising, right? Search advertising, or there's very few attorneys who do display advertising, but any of those types of ads that you choose to invest in. On the flip side, I would be absolutely shocked if within 60 days of starting a blog or a podcast or a video series or a content series of any kind, you started to see returns. Those tend to be 6 months to start to prove themselves out, right? The first 60 days, you probably are not even that great at it, and you're sort of learning the ropes and just barely getting started, and whatever, producing a post or an essay or a piece every week or two, and how are those going? They're probably not getting much traction. You haven't figured out where they resonate and with whom yet, and who's going to help you amplify and promote them, and where is that going to happen. That's all part of the process, right? And then 6 months into it, you're like, ooh, I kind of have this, I'm building up this energy where I put up, a new piece of content every week, and I sort of send it to my small but growing email list of people who subscribe to that. There were only a few dozen at first, but now there's like 100 people, and next month there'll be 150. That's going well. And I'm sort of figuring out what kinds of content work. And when I post it on LinkedIn and share it on Twitter and put it on my Facebook page and link to it for my Google profile, whatever. Oh yeah, I get a little bit of traction. And I've had a few pieces where I answered something on Quora or Reddit and people came to it. Great, right? Now you're figuring out a little bit along the way. For me, it took probably 2 years before I think folks in the marketing world, some people in the digital marketing world would have said like, oh, Rand Fishkin, Moz, yeah, I know him. Yeah, I've read that site. It's pretty good, right? It takes years, right? This is a long, slow burn type of investment. And, it's absolutely the case that the first time someone comes to your website, the first time they hear about you, they probably won't even remember you, right? What are the chances that 2 weeks from now, I will be able to remember Laura Frederick's name? Yeah, pretty small, right? I only heard it once. Well, now I've said it once, but it's minimal. However, if over the next few months, I start to get into whatever contract law stuff where I'm helping somebody in that world, and then I see it 5 or 6 more times. Oh, now I'm there. Why does Cheetos advertise? Cheetos doesn't advertise because you don't know what Cheetos are. They advertise so that you have them in your mind regularly. And when you're feeling snacky and, low on self-control, you go to the airport and, snack shop and you buy the Cheetos, right? And this is sort of how branding and advertising and messaging work. And so, a lot of these investments are similar. It's also the case, Jay, and I think this is a really important one, that one of the frustrating things about marketing in general is many folks see their competitors or someone who's like them, who's buying advertising, getting a return on investment with it. They try and copy that, and they're not, right? So, whatever it is. Rand and Jay are the new bad lawyers on your block.com. We register that site and we're advertising, and we're like, gosh, why are we losing out to, I don't know, Chopra and Hutchinson? And we're like, oh, well, gosh, we're spending the same amount of money. And we're in all the same places, and our ads are decent. They're pretty similar. Why are we losing out, Jay? Why aren't our advertising dollars going very well? Oh, because nobody's ever heard of us before. They've heard of Chopra and Hutchison. They've never heard of Rand and Jay on your block lawyers. So it takes time, right? You've got to build up that brand recognition and familiarity and trust, and then your advertising dollars go far. And this is one of the reasons a lot of marketers suggest that you invest in organic channels, right? Getting people to know you, like you, trust you before you start throwing money at Google and Facebook.
Yeah. All right, Nisa, I know we're bumping up against an hour here. Do you want me to ask another question or two, or should we keep going for a minute?
Let's do one more question.
Okay. All right. Well, here's one. This is maybe something that you've kind of touched on or around in various answers, Rand, but I oftentimes think of it in terms of it being visible on, social platforms, for example, but then the idea of, I guess maybe if you could address the idea of building a platform of your own in some capacity, whether that you see that as something important, like something you own that you can send people to. And the one thing I'll just mention, one reason I was having a discussion with a client today, because I think that, something like a podcast or a webinar series or a blog, it's not just a marketing tool, but it sometimes can be a great relationship building tool as well, right? Like a podcast, for example. You could be someone who is in an industry, a lawyer who maybe doesn't have a tremendous amount of relationships, you call someone up, you suggest going to lunch, they're not going to pay attention to that overture. You invite them on your podcast, it's a whole nother ball game. So maybe address that, Rand, just generally about platform building and the difference between borrowing someone's platform and having one of your own.
Someone told me that, it's been 50 years since men forgot how to have meaningful conversations with each other. And podcasts are how men have meaningful conversations with each other now.
That's a great point. Yeah,
I thought to myself, oh, I see. It's sort of toxic masculinity and gender stereotyping that has prevented this thing, and podcasts are going to help us fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. So first off, Jay, yes, I 100% agree that having a source of influence is a very powerful way to, a platform of any kind is a very powerful way to build relationships with someone. It's extremely unlikely, right? That especially if you get an introduction to someone, you say, hey, come on my podcast, come on my video series. I'd like to interview you for our website. People love to talk about themselves. And so therefore you can often build those relationships that way in ways that wouldn't otherwise be accessible to you. For sure, you can do that. I wouldn't recommend spamming it. There are people who manipulate that stuff and it becomes pretty obvious. But I would also say that the importance of building up a platform, a channel that you own and control fully. So not just, oh, my podcast exists solely on iTunes or Spotify, but I also have it self-hosted on my website, my email list. Those are the two that I would drive everyone back to as much as you possibly can. In fact, I say this regularly, I would take one email subscriber over 100 new Facebook fans. Absolutely, without question, I would. Because the reach on Facebook, average reach, I think is 0.09% on Facebook right now. Great, that's organic reach, right? So you could pay to reach more of your fans, whatever, followers, whatever. But it's pretty miserable. Twitter is equally as bad. Instagram is a little bit better, but still not 1%. So I just wouldn't, I would not make those platforms your home. Those platforms exist for me as a marketer to drive traffic back to my website and my email list. And I do all my marketing in all these other places in order to send people to, in my case, SparkToro.com, right, in our email list. That's how I would structure yours as well.
Yeah, great. Well, we 4 o'clock on the nose. So, 4 o'clock where I'm at, 1 o'clock, I guess.